A reading from the first letter of Paul to the Corinthians. I do not want you to be unaware, brothers and sisters, that our ancestors were all under the cloud and all passed through the sea, and all of them were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. All ate the same spiritual food, and all drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank from a spiritual rock that followed them, and the rock was the Christ. Yet God was not pleased with most of them, for they were struck down in the desert. These things happened as examples for us, so that we might not desire evil things as they did. Do not grumble, as some of them did, and suffered death by the destroyer. These things happened to them as an example, and they have been written down as a warning to us, upon whom the end of the ages has come. Therefore, whoever thinks he is standing secure should take care not to fall. The word of the Lord.
Our second reading for this Sunday comes from the first letter of Paul to the Corinthians. We are reflecting on the theme of God's mercy towards us and hopefully our response of faith and conversion. In the first reading, we see how Moses encountered the God of love, the God who shows His mercy towards His people suffering in Egypt. Now, in the second reading, St. Paul goes back to that experience in Exodus. He reminds the Corinthians of the people Israel's wandering in the desert and their crossing the sea towards the promised land, and how in their wandering in the desert, they also were given food, that mysterious food, manna from heaven, and how in the desert also they got the gift of water from the rock that Moses struck. But St. Paul gives a Christian interpretation to these events that were prominent in the exodus of the people Israel from Egypt towards the desert and on their way to the promised land. The crossing of the sea was compared to baptism in the name of Christ. The mysterious bread is connected to the Eucharist, where we receive the bread of life, Jesus Himself, and the water that comes from the rock. That rock is Jesus, and the water is the Holy Spirit that we drink of. Now, but St. Paul goes back to that experience of the Israelites and tells the Corinthians, look, these Israelites have experienced the mercy, the compassion of God in very concrete forms. Crossing of the sea, bread from heaven, water in the desert, but they still did not get the favor of God. Why? Because they failed to respond to the goodness and mercy of God. They grumbled against God. They complained. They failed to see the goodness of God. And their desires were still focused on earthly and even evil things. Now, St. Paul tells the Corinthians that should not be the case with us. We should learn from the sad experience of the Israelites. They wasted the mercy, the compassion of God. So, God is merciful. God is compassionate. What are we doing with the mercy and compassion of God? How are we responding to the God of love? It is a sad reality seen in the history of the Israelite people and even in our own history that we can reject the God of love, of mercy, and compassion. So St. Paul is challenging us. God will always offer mercy to us, but will you accept that in faith? And will you always be converted? Will you reform your life so that you will be in harmony with the action of God in your life? Do not waste God's love. Receive it in faith. Change, reform, be converted. In this day and age, social networking has become a very convenient mode of communication among people. With just a click and the power of the internet, you are able to reach your loved ones wherever they are. On the other hand, it is saddening and alarming to know that there are some people who take advantage of the reach and availability of social networking sites, spreading scandals and false information about a certain entity or personality, engaging in fraud and scams, and at times pretending to be someone else. Recently, I have been getting reports that there are fan pages and personal accounts under my name and are circulating over Facebook. To set the record straight, I have no personal Facebook account. Rather, I have only one Facebook page, and it is being maintained by Jesuit Communications. I seek your help in reporting fraudulent pages and accounts, not only those concerned with myself, but also with other people and entities. Let us keep the social networking world a good communication venue by being truthful.